was dancing to the music.
Yeah, me too. I was like, woo!
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We are live.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Hi, the world. We are BlogtorWho as a collective, and we've got new Doctor Who to talk about, and that's why we're on YouTube. So my name is Bedwyr. I've been writing for BlogtorWho for a little while. I'm going to introduce Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan. I'm the editor and owner of BlogtorWho, and I guess I've been writing for a little while too.
And I'm Peter, and I also contribute to the BlogtorWho site with various bits of nonsense,
Including cosplay.
Yeah.
And I'm Manny. I'm Manny. I'm an old BlogtorWho fan, as well as knowing Susan. I live in Los Angeles, and a massive fan of Doctor Who with strong ties to London and sci-fi, generally here in the UK and London, so and LA. So there we go.
Fantastic.
And he's got a better introduction than the rest of us.
Well, yes. So let's talk first of all about the 60th anniversary. We are in the 60th year of Doctor Who now. How has everyone enjoyed their 60th birthday?
It's
Go for it, Peter.
Well,
difficult.
I don't know how much stuff you had in the UK, but I thought in the US we didn't really get much here. I had to get clips on YouTube and so on.
Oh,
I mean, what did you guys have?
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's difficult because the 50th is still in living memory, and the 50th is huge, and it's one of those weird things where 50 is I mean, technically 60 is a bigger number than 50. But at the same time, like when it's 50, everyone makes a tremendous deal about it. I mean, I remember everybody hanging on to see, are they going to have a big event that everyone can physically go to this year? And then basically it wound up just in the pages of Doctor Who magazine. Russell T Davies basically just went, nah. it was just announced that it wasn't going to be with him basically going like, nah, don't feel like it. So then there wasn't. So yeah, it feels like a much smaller deal this time, even though, I mean, it still is quite a big deal.
Yeah, but I think there's more online, more available all over the place. And that's what I guess I was talking about. So if you go on iPlayer, there's everything, everything that ever was and never will be, I suppose, is all out there, including, Sarah Jane and Torchwood and Confidential and some clip that
who's Doctor Who from 77
or something or other, some stuff that I looked at and I'm going, I don't recall ever seeing any of this.
Well, we don't get that here in the US, but unless you've got a certain VPN.
But
I think you will actually. I think it's whenever Disney starts kind of making. So we have it comes on with a Whoniverse thing that looks very Marvelish. Would you all say that?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
very Marvelish. Yeah,
very Marvelish. I suspect if you go look at at least our streaming Disney thing has a Marvel section, and I suspect you will have this big.
We hope so, because right now in the US, Doctor Who's on BritBox for classic, and then 2005 to 2022 is Max, HBO Max, or whatever you call it in the UK. We call it Max here right now, and then Disney Plus is 2023 onwards. So but that's it, nothing else. We don't have any spin-offs or anything. Everything's sort of divided up on those three channels. So
yeah, I think the plan is, the impression that I've gotten is that they have to wait for all of the current licensing agreements to lapse. So I think the idea is that at some point Max's license for those seasons will just run out, and then they'll move it to Disney. But they can't. They have to just basically be going like if someone has already bought it, they can't say, "Oh, we're taking it back because we've got a better offer." I mean, maybe they could, but it would be expensive. I imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But something like ABC, the Australia Broadcasting Company, and there was a message on our blog. Just is it going to go on BBC America? Sorry,
No.
It's not going to actually. And Australia has had that on there since 65, I believe. 63 or 65, 63 to 65. But it's almost as long as Doctor Who's been on. They've had that license, and they don't have it now. So things like
Look,
that.
can we talk about the Ireland's loophole? Because this touches me deeply. It's like a dagger in my side. It's like a personal attack. That the Ireland's loophole is that, you know, all of the language that they send out says, oh, the new Doctor Who season will be airing on BBC One in the UK and Ireland, and on Disney Plus in the US. Well, that's technically true, but the trouble is that iPlayer isn't available in Ireland. So basically, around the world, you can stream it. You can stream it on iPlayer in the UK. You can stream it on Disney Plus everywhere else except for Ireland, where you can't stream it at all.
Okay, so you're special.
Just
Wow.
because, I guess.
Yes. I think the problem of this transitioning the license is going to make it more difficult for it to be more worldwide an event. It's certainly, and that's probably why Russell didn't make it into a big event, because he couldn't do it worldwide, because the 50th was worldwide. I mean, we had parties everywhere. And I don't think you can.
It's in cinemas and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you would do it again the same way right now.
No.
Maybe the 70th. When we get everyone back in their wheelchair.
Yeah.
David Tennant will be back again. I'm sure of it.
Yes.
Almost certainly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's. I think the iPlayer in the UK has been the big thing for the 60th, and obviously we've got 3 specials starting with the Star Beast. So, Manny, what was your overall impression of?
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was like Doctor Who back to how you know, I remembered being Doctor Who, which was 2006, 7, 8. You know, I thought it was great. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I actually saw it many, many times. The first time I saw it, I was supposed to host a party, but didn't work out. So I watched it by myself, and I sat there blubbering for like about 20 minutes at the end, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. All this nostalgia of that period came back, and I think I told you before that the day after Journey's End was my flight to LA, and I moved to LA that day. So that brought back so many old memories from back home, etc. So wrapping it all up, absolutely brilliant. Loved it. Was it perfect? Almost, yeah, but it was great.
Peter, how about you?
I wouldn't say I loved it unconditionally. It had lots of good stuff in it, but it also had problems. Part of it, I guess, was heightened expectations, because I mean, I've been following Russell T Davies ever since he left the first time. I mean, he was great before in lots of ways, but like all of the shows that he's done in between, like It's a Sin and everything, like he's come on in leaps and bounds. There were just a few things in this one that I thought he would have gotten over by now, like things of, oh, well, if you turn off the Doomsday device, then all the streets heal themselves.
Oh, yes.
That one bugged me. I'm going, how did they heal themselves?
And I was like, that's almost like the sort of thing that people used to complain that he'd do, but he never actually really did. But now he's actually doing it.
Definitely did it this week. Susan, overall?
So overall, I loved it. It was great and everything like that, and I loved the energy. I loved the Doctor and Donna together. They're brilliant. Okay, and they just stepped and clicked right away. I like the characters and everything. The ending with the it's all solved, which is a bit of a Russell T Davies thing. Everything's going along massively difficult to solve, and then boop, we just have let's let it go.
Yeah,
I almost expected them to start singing "Let It Go."
Okay, so overall very positive. I really enjoyed it. Like Manny, it felt like 2008 again.
Yeah,
it really did.
Yeah.
And that was great. And I really enjoyed having like a classic, if you can term it that way, modern Doctor Who episode. You know, there was a threat, there was the family element, all of that sort of all those tropes really that we're used to post 2005 onwards, they were all there. And I think it was a really good opener and felt nice to be back. So I mean, I guess we'll work through it chronologically. The one issue I did have really was the opening sort of info dump of explaining the. To me, it wasn't so much the fact that they felt they had to do it. It was the way it was delivered direct to camera.
You mean
I
breaking the fourth
felt,
wall? Breaking the fourth.
yeah,
Yeah.
I felt they could have done, either a previously on Doctor Who kind of montage of clips that explained everything, and it was something that came up, as we went through. Peter, what did you think of that?
You see, I didn't even mind the directness to camera bit. Well, what got me about that bit was the fact that it didn't work for what it was trying to do. Like, you can debate the thing like, well, do you really need to open up with a big recap explaining where you are? But also the fact that it didn't work as a recap either, because it was a bit like the opening of the TV movie, like in 1996, and opens with Paul McGann, and he sort of like throws chapter and lore, and like, by the way, a Time Lord is certainly not like, and he throws all this stuff at you, and you just know that either you already know all that stuff, or you're watching it going, what is he talking about? I think I'm going to check out. This doesn't feel like for me. And I felt the same a little bit about this one, where it's reminding people that, it was something that would remind people that like remembered 95% of it and maybe just needed a little nudge. But if you hadn't watched any of those episodes, you'd be absolutely none the wiser about what on earth was going on.
Yeah, it's true. Susan, what did you think of the sort of? Yeah,
I thought it was possibly necessary, because I think there's been a lot of people that faded away after David Tennant left. I mean, Matt Smith was very popular, but he wasn't popular with some groups.
It is 15 years since Journey's End. So
yeah. The people aren't immersed in it as much as we are.
I don't know what you mean.
It wasn't for me, as Peter says. I have no idea what you're talking about. I do think it was kind of for the half in, half out crowd that had watched it before, forgotten, and using it just to poke some memories. I don't think it necessarily was completely working for the new people, and it certainly wasn't necessary for me. It just took up too much of the screen while I watched Donna just figuring out what was on the back of Donna's computer.
Yeah, but I will say about that sequence. I will say about that sequence though, because I've actually watched a couple of reaction videos of the Star Beast, because like it's quite a good way to sort of like take the temperature of what other people are thinking of it. I've seen people watching the Star Beast that by the time you get to that like direct to camera, like Donna talking about, I feel like I've lost something. Like people were already starting to break down in tears at that point. You're like, we're about 22 seconds into the show.
Okay.
Pace yourselves. So it obviously like it did work. It gave lots of people like a big emotional hit.
Yeah, I don't think it's for us. Okay, but I do think it was necessary.
Well, I mean, when I saw it the second time, I saw it with someone that had never seen an episode of Doctor Who, and they literally had no idea what was going on, and I was like, okay, it felt them completely. We had to like stop the episode several times, go and explain to them, what certain things were, etc. I don't want to go too much into it right now because I'm going to cover them later on, but it was like just it didn't work for the new people. It didn't work on us, but it kind of pretty worked, like you said, on the heel that jumped out of the sort of David Tennant sort of reign tenure, as it were.
I think that's where it did, and I think that's where it was directed at. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, you were emotional about this point.
Yeah. Obviously, it was a theme that came up again and again, and was crucial. But we'll go into that a little bit, I think, as we go through. But another exciting new thing is a new title sequence. What were people's reactions to that?
I didn't like the font. I didn't like where it said David Tennant, Catherine Tate. I thought that looked a little bit too. It was trying to look a bit to like Superman, with the opening credits with that, and it was just trying to do, and it just didn't. The font didn't look right. The text didn't look right. I mean, the sort of colorful sort of Apple background title sequence, and that was kind of cool. But I think it was too colorful. I think too colorful, and the font just didn't look right. The diamond looked great. The BBC Doctor Who bit that looked great, but the rest of it just looked a bit out of place though.
Yeah, I get the colourful thing because it felt like gas clouds rather than space.
Yeah.
You know,
the old iPod or Apple commercials where they have all that paint splashing and that kind of stuff. That's what it reminds you. Yeah.
Peter?
Well, I thought, because I swear we're soon going to come to bits of the episodes that I have no notes on, because at the moment we're simply going through a list of minor nitpicks that I've got about it. But with the opening title sequence, I mean, first of all, I actually did overall. I really liked the opening title sequence. It did really hit me that. I mean, I remember before when this was all starting up, and even though they hadn't used the word universe anywhere, Rusty Davies was talking about like his plan for like lots of content, lots of spin-offs. And the example that he was using was he said that he was a huge fan of what Star Trek are doing at the moment with like the different shows and varied type of shows. And the opening credits put me in mind of that, because I was like, this was put together by someone that's watched the Strange New Worlds opening several times and gone like, oh yeah, I love that. Because I mean, if you take out the Enterprise and you put in the police box and you speed it up because the pace of the theme is faster, they're like strikingly similar ideas. And also there's a couple of oddities to it that sound really nitpicky, but like it is like that Disney money should be going somewhere, really. That there's weird things like when David Tennant's name appears. I mean, like quite apart from the font that it's in, but it does this weird thing where it fades in, it crosses in and fades in, and then it solidifies. And when it solidifies, it's fine. When it's crossing over,
it looks a little bit too. It looks very cheap. It looks very kind of like.
Well, when it's crossing over and fading in, it's misspelled, and I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to be misspelled. It just pops into his correct name at the end, but it's missing ends.
Right.
When it's crossing over, and then when Catherine Tate's name appears, it's supposed to be the police box whishes across, and it like reveals that her name is behind it. But it's not perfectly done, so bits of her name are actually trailing across the front of the police box, which is weird. And then I think the thing that a lot of people have pointed out is that when the Diamond logo actually switches in, it looks a bit, like PowerPoint tumble animation and just goes.
Not have people with technical video expertise actually looking at this stuff.
So there's a couple of, but like in concept, it's great. And I mean, the great thing about it is that in a few episodes, they're going to have a second shot and like maybe get Shooty Gatway's name right when it's coming in. But yeah, it ties in as well to that thing that it almost feels like David has taken note of like little nitpicks that people had before, and they've gone like, oh, you haven't seen nothing yet. Like with that ending, and then the thing that people used to complain about the old school logo sort of like flipping in. Yeah. So now the new one sort of like really flips in.
Yeah. Susan, how about you?
Well, the thing that I liked about the 2005 one is the TARDIS would come along, it would hang on one vortex and drop through. And I was just praying that it would just hang on one vortex and drop through, and the music. I don't know. For some reason, that one always appealed to me because the music captures it. And it didn't happen. It had some other weird spinny thing at the time that it would be happening. The gas part, it's okay. Cut pink and purple, not my favorite colors, but it was. I'm not going to there were a lot of visual critiques that I would have, and I know Manny always complains about the font. We had this discussion making
many times. Yes,
fonts are wrong.
I didn't like when the diamond came in, then the Who bit comes out. I thought that was pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's almost the weird thing about it, is that the logo exits really well, but what?
Strange Worlds. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying, why does the logo exit so well when it comes? Like, why couldn't they have it come in and leave well? Why does it have to sort of like? But
Yeah,
yeah, no, but and it's weird to say. I really like the opening sequence. It's just like got a couple of weird points in it that ruined it. And plus, we were kind of spoiled in the last. I know the Chibnall Whittaker era had lots of critics, and I'm not looking at anyone in particular here, Bedwyr, but but the thing that most people seem to agree on was that opening sequence that it had was incredible. And this one just feels like it's not sort of like vibing as hard and like that Doctor Who feel. It feels more like something from another show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like I said, I was waiting for the TARDIS to hang from one vortex to another. Okay, and that was missing. And the fonts and
but at least we got a title sequence, unlike the last.
We have a title sequence.
Yeah, the last 3 years we didn't really have one, did we? So we just had what's those ink dot paint things, and that was it. That's all we had.
Okay, well, I think we've criticized the title sequence for now. 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, if you're watching online, if you're watching live, feel free to comment and chip in, and also join in with the criticism of the title sequence. But let's move on. We got the titles, and the TARDIS materializes, and David Tennant struts out in classic or 10th Doctor fashion, really. Susan, Tennant, he's doing 10.
I put my review up. I think it's David Tennant being David Tennant for the 10th, but he wasn't exactly the same as the 14th.
No.
So the 14th is different. But when he walked out there, he certainly was like remnants of the Christmas one were that happened after Donna left. Which
the next
one
Doctor.
The next Doctor. Thank you very much. He walked out like there, and it was a bit like that, yes, and all the other stuff. I can talk. I'll leave that the whole David Tennant character, because I did put my review up on that about the changes. But I just thought it was lovely to see him walk out with a strut and a smile and a spin, and taking you right back to 2006, 2008, whatever. It was just enjoyable. All right, and you should always give David Tennant a flashy coat where he can spin it.
Yeah, I mean, well, Peter, you look the part. So, did it work for you? Was Tennant in the streets of London?
Thank you for coming to the good bits of the episode now. So I finally don't seem like a terrible grump about everything. But David Tennant was brilliant, and I mean, because he's always brilliant in everything that he does. I mean, there's no one quite like him for just being able to throw his hands to like terrible people, and like fantastic like code swishy heroes. And he was great in this. He definitely did. I mean, I agree with him what he said in like behind the scenes material, that there was no point in getting him back to play a completely different version of the Doctor. That like it might have been satisfying for some. It might have been satisfying for him to sort of be able to demonstrate, oh, look at my range, I can play this part completely differently. But it wouldn't have been satisfying to the people expecting to see him back. So I appreciate that. But I mean, he hasn't really lost his touch. Like everything that he did in it was like perfect. Absolutely great.
Yeah, I do think he. I mean, I've listened to some of the Big Finish stuff where Tennant came back, and I was almost going, you're just missing it a little bit. You're not quite there. But this time, he was absolutely back on what his character was. Do you know what I mean? He hit it all points.
Manny?
Yeah, I have to agree with Susan. It was, it's nice seeing him back. It just felt very, the nostalgia kicks in, and just him like just prancing around by himself that first minute or so, kind of like puts you in the mood, and you're like, you could have a sigh of relief going, okay, we're back now. Now let's get the episode going. And it was just nice. And like they picked him for a reason. They had to bring everyone back that had left the show, so they couldn't go too far from being different from the 10th to the 14th Doctor, but they had to have the similarity and also a bit of tweakness here and there, but still keep the same kind of format to get all those old viewers back.
Yeah, and really sticking with that format and starting the episode off right with a bang, really. He bumps into Donna immediately.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was a good move. Bang! We were wanting Donna and the Doctor to reunite, and we did it right away. Bang! Here we are. Go. No problem. No. Let's start the humor and the dynamic between them going right off, right at the beginning. No change whatsoever. She doesn't remember him, but
yeah, the dynamics there, isn't it, Peter?
Yes.
Yeah,
I love the comment about 35 and the skinny suit, though.
Yeah, that was great.
No comments. But yeah, it's such a great gag though that he just helps a random woman carrying boxes by removing it, and then it's Donna looking him straight in the face. He's just like,
yeah, really good. Well, for me, it's not Donna of the Runaway Bride. It's not quite Donna of Journey's End. It's sort of in between, and I think Catherine Tate does really well at finding that gap between the two.
Yeah, well, it's like she was like the Donna from Partners in Crime before she ran to the Doctor, because you kind of that she had something, she lost it, right? Same situation, you know.
I think she had bits and pieces of all the Donna that she was before. There was a lot more confidence and independence in her character if we go through the whole thing. I mean, she's fiercely protective of her daughter, and she stood up to her mother a lot better. I mean, she's got a lot of the characteristics that she had when she was traveling with the Doctor, but not the memories. And that comes out, I think. It's a stronger Donna than it was. She's certainly not the weak Donna that she was of the Runaway Bride.
Yeah. I'd agree. But yeah, I thought Catherine Tate was brilliant. Let's get into the story that inspired this episode. How many of us remember the Star Beast originally? Hands are going up. The
old people's hands are going up. Okay.
I'm not going to confess to reading it in 1978, but I've read it before this.
Yes.
I've read it in the in-between years before this was announced.
I started looking for it and may have it up in the loft. But some of my Doctor Who stuff got damaged when I moved. On one of my many moves, so I couldn't necessarily find it because there's also a lot of rubbish in front of it, but I do think I have it. I certainly recall it, the magazines.
Yeah, I think it's a comic that's been re-released a couple of times and has been published in other things, and Manny, how aware of you?
I mean, I know of Beat the Meat, but to be honest, I mean, I was like 2 or 3 when it came out, you know, so I didn't really see it the first time around. But I know it was one of the most popular comics out there, and it was a brilliant move from Russell to take that storyline, because, you know, what do you do on the anniversary? You've done everything else. Let's do something that the fans really enjoy, and this is something that no one's done before, which is take an old story from a comic book and make it into live action. And as we saw on Unleashed, one of the 2 guys that wrote the comic book, one illustrated, one wrote it, obviously. When they saw it come to life, their faces were just, you know, were just seeing their faces was just joyful, and it was like seeing, you know, when we saw Van Gogh see his paintings come alive, you know, and that Doctor episode, it was exactly the same reaction to that, you know. So it was great. I kind of liked the fact that Russell made that decision. And, you know, I mean, you know, when, you know, after 60 years, what other stories can you tell that's going to get the fans back? So, you know, the brilliant move to getting David and Catherine back, as well as bringing back the older fans with Meet the Beat, you know, because that was in the Tom Baker era, and bringing them back. Well, the whole thing was great. You know, for an anniversary special, it was exactly what was, I think, needed, to be honest.
I think Pat Mills and, you know, Dave Gibbons have come up with a great idea and a great character in the Meep, and the realization of that was so impressive. And again, you know, we'll talk a little bit about Unleashed towards the end, but yeah, you know, that it was a physical entity. They created a Meep, and that was amazing. And I thought the Wrath Warriors as well looked really strong and really good, and just consistent with the comic. Susan, as someone who read the comic, would you agree with that?
I would. I thought, well, when I heard Beep the Meep, I think what the PR, some fans caught it filming, or it was on the street, something or whatever, and it came about. I don't recall when I heard it, but I must admit I missed the beep part of the meep. It's just the meep in this one. But anyway, I thought they captured a lot of the story that was there before. I mean, it's obviously not as complex or as detailed because it's a simpler version of this, but I thought, the battle on the street, the Wrath Warriors, the switch, even the look of Meep to the comics, and that was mentioned in one of the Unleashed episodes, and how they built the Meep. It was brilliant, and the Wraith Warriors look exactly like they do from the comic book. It was very honest to the story, the plot, the characters that were in there. I mean, I don't know if many of you noticed the kid that they had showing around. That was Fudge.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't name him, but that was Fudge because we were lucky enough to get the names that they have for the characters on the pictures. But that's Fudge, and originally it was Fudge and Sharon that chased down the Meep, etc., and found them. And it was so lovely that was even recognized for people like me. I went, Fudge, yay! Had the pictures. Okay, so it was definitely a true to. They were trying as much as they possibly could to add that in, and I also think it's a followable. It's a followable. You can follow the story very easily. And then it allowed the focus of Russell to actually do on the characters and Rose and David and Catherine's characteristics there. So it allowed the family's tale to come out a lot stronger. Just like in the original pilot, it's very reflective of the original pilot that he did with Rose. That was a simple story as well. But it was all introducing the characters and their relationships to each other, and this is a reflection of Rose, and it's a reflection of Starbeast. And I don't mean Rose in Noble. I mean Rose.
Peter, thoughts on the Wrath Warriors in particular? I thought their movement was really good.
Yeah, it's almost, and it's almost brave to do the Wrath Warriors as faithfully as that, because I mean they're even in comic book terms, like they're very 2000 AD. They're very sort of like Judge Dredd denizens of Mech City 1 type. Like they're creepy, but they're also goofy, and when they're designed to be slightly goofy when they're on the comic book page, then if you make them in real life, they look. They're it's not a slam because it's the intention here. Like they look a bit goofy, but that's okay. It's just kind of cool and brave that they actually just went like, because there must have been some voices in that room at some point saying like, should we just not make them like more honestly scary? Should we not go a bit more like H.R. Geiger on these guys? And like they was going like, no, they must look both threatening and ridiculous.
Well, the thing is but that's the charm of Doctor Who, though. The reason why we like it, because the special effects weren't always that great. And I think if you go too far with the special effects, even though I don't know how much is an episode now, but they said it's like the cost of one episode now was the cost of one whole season. Yeah. But like if you go too far, Doctor Who, it loses its charm. You can't have that much. You can't have it that perfect. You have to have some things that have to look a little bit sort of, paper mache and sort of cardboardy, and that sort of that's why I loved Doctor Who back in the 70s and 80s, when I was watching it growing up. And it was and I think if you go too far, you're going to lose the charm of it, and that's why I think some shows some shows that have come back rebooted are too polished. And I think that's what going back to the title sequence, it was too polished, and that's why we didn't like it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You don't want to make it too scary up against the Meep, who initially obviously is sweet and cute, and the Doctor says, "Oh, look how cute he is," and as people who are aware of the plot of Star Beast, you know that that's going to change. But if you have a villain that's equally as scary and threatening, then
but I think it's a necessary balance as well, because actually thinking about it, like some of the action in the Star Beast, taken at face value, it's actually brutal. Like there's a huge pitched battle between two groups. Basically, I mean, you dress it up in science fiction terms, but you basically got two groups showing like shooting machine guns at each other down a residential street, blowing up things left, right, and center, and people. And you later turn out that they're only stunned, but people are falling to the ground left, right, and center.
Well, the unit guys had real. The reason was had stuns, but the unit people had real ammunition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it takes the edge off a little. Like if they were really horrible looking monsters as well, it might have taken a bit too. So when you've got an intense scene like that, and like the Wrath Warriors and their design helps making going like, but it's all make believe, kids. Don't get too worried about it.
Yeah, I don't know how well it came across, but there's kind of two elements of unit soldiers. There's the ones that have been taken over by the psychedelic stuff and the Meep, trying to rescue the Meep. You've got the Wrath Warriors. Then you've got other unit soldiers coming in who are unaware of what's going on, and they're just firing at everything. And they wouldn't have been, using stun weapons and things like that. So, it's as you say, that's quite an elaborate sequence and can be quite intense. Susan, that
I thought it it took a bit of the edge off of the fear and things like that. Just like Meep is cute and turns into basically a nasty monster. Okay, they're considered to be a nasty monster. I mean, Meep even calls them monsters. Okay, and then they turn out to just be goofy arachnid or insect type creatures. Pardon?
Police officers, basically.
Police officers, yes. They're and coming out with posh voices. I think that was something that came out in the podcast. They're posh and they
like Talio.
They're on the door going, hello, what's all this then? At one point.
Almost I was expecting that.
Is this your Meep, sir?
Did you notice what? Anyway, yes. So I do think it was good in that sense, but I do think some kids would have been scared regardless.
Yeah.
Can we just have a shout out for the fact that the Star Beast has now come from nowhere to like really be gunning for Shada's title as the most adapted Doctor Who story of all time. I mean, you've got the original comic, you've got the Marvel edit of the comic, which moves some things around and color stuff in. You've got the Big Finish adaptation of it.
Yes.
You've got a TV adaptation of it. You've got a novelization of the TV adaptation of the comic. And then you've got an audiobook of the novelization of the TV episode of the comic.
And do you not think there's going to be another comic?
Yeah.
Oh.
There'll be a
there would be another comic. Okay.
Doesn't the Meep actually meet Tom Baker, as in like Tom Baker? That's what I was. One of the things I saw online, that the Meep actually meets Tom Baker out of the whole Doctor Who universe. It's
this was something I wondered if they do, and if the 14th Doctor would recognize the Meep.
Yeah,
right.
Because his fourth incarnation had encountered him in the comic. Whether that was, but then that's too meta for that's a bit complicated. So just Jordan, thank you for watching. Describing it as that action sequence is very cinematic. Completely agree. And unit themselves looked really heavily bolstered, and obviously we had Power of the Doctor, where again they're quite a force, and we'll see a presumably in the third of these 3 specials, the Avengers Tower type base that they now have.
Mm-hmm.
But Unit looked really good, and some good characters in there, particularly. I've written it down
Colonel
now.
Chan. Colonel Chan.
Shirley Ann Bingham.
Oh yeah,
Was
that was
Ruth
Ruth.
Madley.
Ruth Madley. Yeah, that was.
I thought she was great.
I liked her line when they had to climb up the stairs, because "Don't make me the problem,"
Yes.
Yeah, and I love that. I thought it was really well done with the whole inclusion. And then they had the Asian representation. They had Major Singh.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty cool. They're the one unit person that didn't have to wear a helmet. I thought that was pretty cool. It was cool, and I loved
Canadian police.
Sorry, what was that, Susan?
Canadian police. I'm sorry, my brain has gone. Sikhs do not have to wear the helmet from the police. So that was done 20 years ago or something like that. So
that was pretty cool. I mean, and Unit just looks like they've. I mean, all of a sudden they're back. Which is really great. Which is absolutely wonderful. And we got the mention of Kate Stewart putting Wilf, into a home.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping we get some Bernard Cribbins in, assuming the third episode. But
the inside, they said Tennant said that he was in something.
Yeah, and we saw him at. I think he was seen at the filming. So people were. I think at the end of the first episode, a couple of people wondered, "Oh, I hope they didn't have to cut the scene." Like I hope he wasn't too obvious that they decided, "Oh, maybe we just better cut the scenes. It'd be more respectful to cut them." But then, like Susan was saying, David Tennant said in the behind the scenes that like he's in the third episode, so that's great.
Yeah. I would think he would know, particularly since his one of his children is named Wilfred.
Yeah.
I mean, because that was a really poignant scene where they mention Wilf and the Doctor assumes that he's passed, and I'd be fascinated to know when they shot that, because that resonates a lot now. But I think going back to Unit, obviously they're going to come up again in the third bit, and Shirley, Ann Bingham, as her Ruth Madley's character was called. We've obviously had this debate in the last week or so after the Children in Need special about disability and representation. This was fair play, a really positive character. She was really good, and I thought, fantastic addition.
She had darts flying out of her wheelchair. She had like bazookas blowing up walls. It was great.
I loved her. I also loved the fact that one of the things that I really hated was when they've destroyed Unit several times, though it doesn't exist. Unit, as the Doctor said, are his guys, right? Do you know what I mean? And I not Torchwood or not all these other people, but he's always sort of. I often feel like if the TARDIS broke, he'd end up back there with a job. Okay, I got to get a real job. Let's go work for Unit.
And we've gone from them having no budget and being disbanded because of that to they've got billions by the looks of it.
I hadn't realized how big, because you don't at first glance you don't realize how big that building is, and then I looked again at one of the establishment shots, and like the walkie-talkie tower in London like comes to about like 40% of the floors of the new Unit building. I'm like, that's must be one of the biggest buildings in the whole world. So I feel like it must be the global Unit headquarters now at this stage. And why on earth have they put it smack dam in the middle of one of the? I mean, that's almost like people. The Avengers link is obviously right there with the design of it, but it's also got that Avengers thing of like, why have you put your headquarters in the middle of one of the most heavily populated cities in the world? Do you not think that's going to attract some trouble at some point?
Well, London always seems to be the most invaded as well in Doctor Who as well. So they're in the action rather than Geneva.
Recently, in the last era, wasn't Sheffield invaded the most, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Sheffield was invaded the most beforehand, but Russell T Davis seems to want to destroy London every other week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I
I mean,
recall
yeah, you already mentioned the sort of it gets destroyed and then magically by reversing it, it comes back together again. But
didn't like that
yeah,
one.
Yeah,
Let-
not for Unit's old
that
headquarters.
was
So
too
that got
easy.
blown up good and stayed that way.
I mean, let's see what the giggle has.
Yeah, I do hope we
enjoy
do
it
get more with Manny, because she's absolutely fantastic. She's fantastic in years and years, and she's actually fantastic as Hebe, the Sixth Doctor's companion in the audios. She's
Yes.
utterly brilliant in those. I felt like she was slightly wasted in the Star Beast, in that, like, you know, she turned up and basically acted as a prompt for the Doctor to deliver some exposition at her. And then later on, she turned up at a convenient moment when, like, the Doctor needed to get in somewhere, so she let him in, basically by blowing a hole in the wall, which is super cool way to let somebody in. But that was kind of her contribution. So I think that she's great. I hope that she gets a lot more to do, in the giggle though.
Yeah,
She's
hopefully
an ongoing character for
Yeah, I mean, I know that she's in it, but I just hope that she gets like a good chunk of. But I mean, I feel like she's going to cross over into Shudi's eras too.
Yeah.
So
that would be good. Yeah, I hope so. And again, just Jordan. Hopefully, Shirley might be somewhat of a Yates type character. I mean, he went a bit off the rails in Planet of Spiders, but you know, hopefully that consistent presence from Unit.
Yeah, well, I mean, not to be controversial, but I feel like that is one of the slight limitations of RTD's new approach to these things, is that we know for certain which Unit character isn't going to suddenly turn traitor and try and roll back time.
But yes,
Mel Bush's character, yeah.
You mentioned her blowing a hole in the wall. Now, she didn't really need to do that because the sonic can, you know, disrupt the concrete or the mortar, as was correctly.
Unless they took the sonic off him. They probably took the sonic off him because.
No, I think it was so that the swishy coat could go through the stuff and give Donna a recognition of him running like that. I looked at it and I go, I can't remember where that shot would have been before. I think that shot's...
Or maybe the bazooka's wheelchair thing was probably just, I don't know, did it a lot faster than the sonic screwdriver. I don't know.
No, I just think there's a recollection, because she started remembering him as the Doctor at that point when he ran through the hole.
Right. Yeah. Yes, you're right. Yes.
And I think there's a shot. My brain was going, is there a shot somewhere with Donna around where he's leaped through the thing like that? And I have a feeling there is, but I couldn't recall where it was.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole Donna thing is that if she remembers him,
she'll die.
She will die and all that. Now, this is where it kind of fell apart for me, because it doesn't. She starts to remember him and nothing happens, and it only seems to be when the Doctor, I don't know whether it's the series of trigger words or whatever, and I've written them all down. It goes Wesley, Pelican, Dreams, Tornado, Clifftops, Andante, Grief, Fingerprint, Susurration, Sparrow, Dance, Mexico. So a complete random selection of words that no one would have in conversation, and that's what unleashes it. So it wasn't actually that when she remembers it all goes. I
don't think she was supposed, when she said Doctor, I don't think she was supposed to have remembered Doctor, just like when he says he would have given the money away. It's kind of one of those subconscious things that come out. Okay. A bit like when Tennant's character had gone to 1913 and things just eked out. Okay. Do you know what I mean? I think that was an eking out moment, not I remembered. I bet you if they had another line in there where her mother talked to her, she would have said, I never said the Doctor. Okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Manny, did that bit throw you how did that whole transition happen for you?
I mean, if we could speak on days about how many plot holes there were with this whole thing, right? But
Yeah.
the thing, what got me was that it was just it for me. It just didn't matter. It was the fact that we had both of them back, and Ross could do whatever he really wanted. Because let's face it, if you think about it logically, none of it makes any sense anyway. But I think it was it just did. When she said doctor, then why didn't she start remembering then? Why all of a sudden do you have to give all those those trigger words for her to remember? So that was by that point I was just hoping for her to start to remember. And I think the emotions kick in and the sort of logic goes out the window. You just want to see those two back together again. And you look at the watch, you go, okay, we're 3/4 of the episode. They've got to do it now, and your brain's like, don't care how we get there. Let's just get there. We want to see them back to being themselves.
Well, I think this is my point where I want to say is that the getting back together, but this is where Tennant's character, the 14th Doctor, is different. And I loved that man. I loved my best friend. He actually gives her the choice, and he honors her choice, and that was always what. That arrogance or that confidence that I'm right, I know better than all of you. That's the difference that this character has from the 10th character.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point, and I wish that it was one thing. It was one of those times where you're almost like waiting for them to make a reference that then they don't. That I almost expect them to actually refer to the fact that since that had happened to Donna, the same thing had happened to him. That since then he's been the 12th Doctor, and he's known what that feels like to have a big part of your life ripped out of your memory, so that you know that you've lost something, but you're not quite sure what. I mean, he's been through that experience that Donna has gone through, without, So I mean, it does feel like they could have. It's there if you know it, but it feels like they could have just slightly made that connection of that's why he's different. He's learned that from that experience himself.
Yeah, and I think there's a degree of hesitance or a degree of lack of arrogance that the 14th Doctor has that you sort of get when you're older. You're not quite, everything isn't as black and white. Everything isn't as clear cut. You're not always right. And you sort of double check or your assumptions. And that was written by Russell T. Davies, but and while David Tennant, and I don't necessarily believe him on this one, said they didn't try and play their characters different. I think he did catch that and played that with the words that he was doing, because he was more hesitant when he was responding. So do you understand? And I think that's the play in there, because it's always that. I mean, the 10th Doctor took Rose's choice away. He took Jack's choice away. He took Donna's choice away. You know what I mean? He dictated to them what was the right answer, and they didn't get to choose. In this point in time, Donna says, "This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. You honor me," and he did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and Catherine Tate plays it brilliantly when she's got that power back and everything. So much energy is fantastic.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what I was just saying is one of the differences, and I do think the characters are different than when they were in the 10th. In 2008. Okay.
So a new character and as it turned out, crucial character is Rose Noble, played by Yasmin Finney. Now, there's probably quite a bit of discussion, shall we say, on social media about how everything transpired in the end. But for me, I thought the character was great. I thought it was written brilliantly. The various scenes that dealt with Rose were brilliant. I just not entirely convinced by the ultimate solution to the the
Let it go.
yeah,
Let It Go thing,
the
yeah.
meta crisis, you know,
that
passing
was
down.
the Let It Go part was a bit of a cop out, but I thought leading up to the whole binary, then non-binary, I thought that was just brilliant. I thought that you couldn't have, that was great. That's what got me emotional. And that was just done really well. Again, great representation for trans people. And that whole segment was great. But the Let It Go thing, I thought that was a bit of a cop out.
I thought it was a bit of a cop out also that I mean that they said, and a male presenting Time Lord won't be able to figure it out. Sort of like a bit of a dig there. And if you're trying to support trans people and everything like that, you shouldn't be doing that dig as well. In a sense, does that make sense? But for me, my daughter is non-binary. I'm not great at dealing with it. I certainly sit on Sylvia's fence trying to figure out what words I'm saying. Okay.
That was a great scene. Really good.
That was great. Okay. Really great. Because I can't remember to say it properly all the time. I say it a lot of the time. I can do it when I'm writing, but it's hard for me to get it and support her. And it does hurt at various points in time, both sides. And I think that scene there and how well, what's her name? Yasmin Finney played. She's a great actress. Okay. I actually spent some time emailing BBC asking them, what are the pronouns on everybody? Please, could you tell me? And I understand why they didn't tell me now. Okay. But do you know what I mean? So, so to me, it spun a lot more personal to me, just trying to support that in my family and not getting it right. All right. So I truly admit not getting it right. Okay.
To that effect, I did appreciate the scene when the kids were calling Rose by their old name, Jason.
Yeah.
And I appreciated them putting that in, showing there's still prejudice out there. It's what people have to go through. She's done nothing to them, but look at how they're treating her.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. And at the end, when she realizes, oh, I don't need it. I'm finally not comfortable in my own skin now. I know who I am, and I think it's great. I think that whole arc was done very well. And going to your point, Susan, yeah, it needed to show that people still don't know how to deal with trans people. They either Sylvia, they're tipped around on confused, or there's hatred, or there's like the kids on bikes, or there's love and respect like Donna, like who'll burn down the wall for Rose, etc. So I think with those kind of three threads going on, that was pretty, that was pretty well handled, I thought.
Well, and he took it directly head on. Okay. Yeah. And let's he sort of took it, like they were dancing around Jodie being the first female doctor, or didn't use some of the things that they could have done. And he just decided to go bang right into it. And he's done that before, and tell me I'm wrong. I could almost hear him say that in my head. But my daughter and I watched it, and I think it was very useful. She loved. There I go again. Okay, they loved Rose, and I think that's a good discussion point for us. It was very very helpful, and I'm still getting it wrong. Do you know?
No, I wasn't so keen on Rose picking up on the Doctor using he as a pronoun for the meep, in that there was that, oh, well, you're just assuming, and that's fine, but he just as you have, Susan, he's not done it out of any malice or anything. That's an accident. It's the contrast to the dead naming scene that sometimes it is accidental, and I think just by discussing and talking and sharing the experience really of both sides in this episode was really strong. Peter, your thoughts on it?
I thought everything around Rose was absolutely fantastic. I think Yasmin Finney is great, and I think Rose is so sweet as a character. It sounds like a terrible thing to say, but it's almost like you could almost, the reason that she doesn't get in the TARDIS at the end is almost that she's too sweet. You know, it's like you kind of go like, well, you're not going to survive out there because you're too nice. And I cuddle up to creatures like the meat and everything just instinctively. So she's adorable and she's lovely. And the handling of her own story, I thought was brilliant. Okay. And I mean, it contained and things like Sylvia, which is I thought that was an important scene to actually give people the confidence of like, you know. I think part of the reason that sometimes people go down the path of being frustrated and then frustrated into cross is because they feel like they're not allowed to make mistakes, and then therefore it's other people's fault that they're not allowed to mistakes. But when in fact, from my experience, as long as you're trying, people are in that situation are very understanding of it typically. So, you know, I thought that was a great scene to be like, for the Sylvias in the world to be like, it's okay. The world isn't going to burn down. Just keep on trying your best. And it's grand.
The one person I think that we didn't touch upon that had no problem with any of it was the dad, was Sean Temple. He was
he's the coolest dad. Oh well.
the cool best two girls on the planet. I don't care.
But can we highlight actually about that with the dad, that as far as we know, because they wouldn't, would they? Because it'd be a dangerous thing to do to tell him about Donna's past. He didn't come into the picture until afterwards. So why would Wilf and Sylvia tell him, oh, there's this terrible secret about Donna that she used to fly around with aliens?
Don't say this.
Wesley.
He might say it. He might blurt it out. So obviously you're not going to tell him the secret. So as far as we know, this is his first night of any experience with any of this stuff. And like his whole response is like, yeah, that's about typical.
Well, no,
that sounds nice.
Why am I not surprised?
He did not see at the end of time though, wasn't he? Remember when her head exploded and didn't he not see that?
He wasn't there. No, he wasn't there.
No, well, he got turned into, he was the master at the time.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yes.
Yes. The question I had, though, is I was sitting there going, so the meta crisis was passed on. And the meta crisis is actually the Doctor and Donna. Okay. So is Rose also the Doctor's daughter as well as Sean's daughter?
Wow.
I was sitting there going, okay.
I guess he isn't any longer because that whole aspect.
She let it go. Okay.
And that's why she was saying at the end that like she, like Manny was saying, like she's able to say that she finally feels like she knows who she is because she doesn't have that little voice in her head that is actually the Doctor's little voice in her heads. Trying to tell her
is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting there going,
although, like I said, we could pick holes in it all day. It's just, but the fact is, we just have to get to that point.
No, I love the character, but that was one thing I was sitting. My brain was going.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, it does speak to
outside.
it speaks to the exact difference you were talking about before, Susan. That the whole thing that, like, you know, this particular Doctor, maybe other Doctors in between would have realized it, but this particular Doctor, like the David Tennant incarnation, more specifically the 10th Doctor, just couldn't conceive of the idea of like, you could just let it go.
Yeah.
Like you could give up that. You could give up, not almost like the third Doctor in Planet of Spiders with the thing of like, well, my problem is that I can't let go of knowledge. If I see knowledge, I have to chase it. And that falling again into the 10th Doctor, that like that's their sort of like criticism of him of like, well, of course you never realized this was a potential solution. It would never occur to you to just let go of knowledge, that knowledge and power that you didn't, that you had your hands on. I mean, I agree. I kind of agree that the male presenting line is a bit much, But I mean, it's one of those things where I mean, it sort of comes from the same bucket as the Stephen Moffat special, the Widow, the Witch. Oh no, the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. Where like there's this weird thing about how inherently superior motherhood is to fatherhood, which is really kind of weird. But like it comes from the same sort of like very low level of actually two-way sexism, because it's basically saying as well that was sort of like, well, if you don't have strong maternal instincts, you're not like a proper woman. And again, into this one, it's kind of like, well, if you're ambitious and you actually like crave those, or like if you like control and you like power, then you're not a proper woman either if you're ambitious. So I mean, it's kind of like a two-way sexism in there. But I mean, compared to the stuff that women have to put up with every single day, like if they're going to make it a slam of like, oh, lots of men are control freaks, I mean, I think our shoulders can take it, to be honest.
Fair enough. Okay. I just it just struck me as a bit odd at the end there. That was all. Okay.
Well, speaking of the end, we get a nice new TARDIS interior, and we go on new adventures. Manny, what did you think of this massive TARDIS?
Oh, I just lost it when I saw it. I absolutely just went, "That's brilliant." I saw a couple of leaks online a couple of months back, but I thought, you know what? No, I'm not going to investigate anymore. I just want to see it. When I want to see it, I'll be blown away, and I was blown away. I thought the disco effect, it's probably going to grow on me, but I did like the whole how it can change color, and it looked like a Mac store, but on it, again, that sort of white sterile sort of feel. But then again, it's going back to the old, the roundlings and the white TARDIS, and that's what I love about Doctor Who. And I think with Nshute's Doctor, I think he's going to add more things to it, make it less sort of sterile. But I think with this, they're going to start with a blank canvas, and then they'll add to it. Because I mean, if they spent so much money on a set like that, they're not going to get rid of it instantly. They're going to keep it for a very long time.
I was a bit unsure about that.
Yeah, but but I loved. I think when the two of them getting all giddy on the set and screaming, and David running around, that's exactly what we all would have done when we all came into that TARDIS. And I thought that was great. And it kind of felt like that was the icing on the cake for me. That was like, right, we're back. Doctor Who's back. We've got rid of all the other, all the stuff we've gone through the last few years have just been completely erased, and now we've reset back to on a new budget, a new channel, a new sort of way forward, and so on. So I loved it.
Yeah, Susan.
So I actually adored it. Okay. I actually don't think I'm the person who adored it the most. There's a picture that Georgia Tennant put out in regards to her family, and the person in the middle is beaming the most. And that happens to be Mr. Tennant. And he also said that he decided he just wanted to run around, so they let him. And they filmed it. Okay. But I mean, that's just a kid's fantasy TARDIS. Run here, run there, touch all the buttons, throw the big switch that goes thunk. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's always that one that goes thunk, and it makes coffee too, so that's not bad.
Yeah. Peter, your costume it fits in well in that environment.
Yeah, I'm going to be slightly contrary. Now, I'm going to be slightly contrary and say that I'm not a massive fan of the new one.
It's nice seeing you, Peter.
No, but I mean, one thing that struck me is that I saw three separate people in three separate conversations all make the same point about it, just completely independent. They all came up with the same observation that it actually looks like Disneyland had created a Doctor Who ride, and this was the themed queuing area.
Okay. I was wanting. We need a hat stand. There needs to be a hat stand.
Yeah, I mean, there does definitely need to be more stuff in it. I think it loses part of the character of the TARDIS, because the TARDIS has to be simultaneously like this incredible, awe-inspiring, futuristic machine, and a home, and it also has to look like it's had better days.
and a piece of junk.
So it's like it doesn't look like a set that that Roger Delgado would walk onto and then go, what? It's like trying to fly a stove.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You mean it doesn't look like he stole it out of the junkyard? Is what?
Yeah,
you're
it doesn't look like it was stolen out of a junkyard, basically.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my thing. And I mean, about the flashing lights around the side, I'm not convinced how much that will actually happen, because if you remember, the Tennant's original TARDIS was designed to do that too. But they just hardly ever actually did it because it was too much of a pain in the neck to set up.
Yeah.
Like
but they've got money now, so they can do they can kind of do whatever they want with it.
And it seems to have a switch to turn it into fire and off for the
I mean, because that's because it works like they're literally like their little perspex windows in all around us, and then they've set up the lights as like a big rig around outside it. So I don't know how often that they're going to feel like, oh yeah, will we set up the light rig for this scene, or will we just maybe take the 12 to 14 hours back?
Yeah, I mean, just Jordan's made an interesting point. It's designed to be accessible.
Yeah,
and all the ramps are great. I mean, it Tennant just running around like a lunatic on it. I didn't necessarily understand the purpose of all the ramps, other than to let him run around.
Because when they did the initial, the first TARDIS from 2005, they said it was just a room, and that's what the comment. Everyone said it just looked like it was just one room, and that was it, and there was no other areas they can go off to. So that's why they put all the different doors
all the way through. You had to look at it. There were doors everywhere.
Yeah, and then the coffee machine.
I have to say this. Okay, Donna said it looked clean. I'd hate to be the person cleaning it.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, especially now because the coffee machine and Donna's coffee's gone all over the console, and I mean, I was annoyed by the coffee machine thing, but then it made sense. I mean, everywhere's got to have a coffee machine because we're all addicted to.
Well, then you can have Starbucks in the background sponsoring it.
I kind of expected that, if I'm honest. I thought there was going to be a sponsorship.
Really?
Decal somewhere.
What about the Red Dawn poster?
Oh. What Red Dawn poster?
When the meat and everybody was going by, they were right behind. There was a Red Dawn poster.
Oh, I
didn't pick up on that.
I didn't
like the classic film, Red Dawn.
I didn't. I clocked it. You just drew my memory. Yes. Wow.
They were all walking by the guy who was sleeping, and right prominently behind them was the Red Dawn.
Yeah. Well, we're not going red. We're going into the Wild Blue Yonder next.
Yep.
So excited for what terrors that will bring us, really.
Well, I think it's just as terrifying as Tuna Madras.
Did you see it was one of the things?
Tuna Madras would kill
Wild Blue Yonder happens after the Tuna Madras, basically.
Apart from the fact that it would kill me, okay. What is Tuna Madras?
Hey, it's Madras with tuna in it.
I got that part. But
and did you see that actually on the podcast they brought some out? They forced them to eat some tuna madras on the podcast, the official podcast.
I saw that.
Presumably according to the Sylvia's recipe, and it was like it has olives in it as well.
Oh God! Oh.
Wow. Well,
Okay, anyway.
Well, thank you all for joining me to discuss the Star Beast. Should we do this again next week?
Yeah. I'm
it was fun. It was fun.
We got more new Doctor Who. It's great.
Yeah, we talked longer than we were expected to, though.
Yeah. Well, it shows how excited we are about having Doctor Who back. And as my T-shirt attests, feels like 2008. So say goodbye, everyone.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.